morning, good evening, good afternoon guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're having a beautiful day and that you are well. Happy 2023. I know it's been a while since I posted a video if you're a regular on this channel. The last year, 2022, has been tough, and if you followed my channel you will be aware that I have been battling with an illness that has just caused me so much pain, and it's just been a really hard 12 months to be perfectly honest. And so this video is all about the diagnosis that I was finally given, and yeah, a little bit about that. So as I'm sure you will be able to tell by the title of this video, I have been diagnosed with endometriosis, and I went for my laparoscopic surgery on the 21st of December 2022. So most of you will probably be watching this video because you have stumbled across it by searching for stories about endometriosis, which is what I've been watching for the last probably 6 months. And so I want to provide a video that is open, honest, and can actually help you with one, not feeling alone, and two, understanding a little bit more about the illness. So before I start, I want to give a disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional. This is just my experiences, and I'm just going to be really open and honest. So if you don't want to hear about periods, about pain, about bleeding, or if you think that could trigger you in any way, particularly in terms of medical trauma and medical anxiety, then just click off this video and watch another video. After I have uploaded this video, a week later I will also upload the vlog of me recovering so that you can see how I was recovering and the ins and outs of what I experienced. This again is pretty open and honest, and if you don't want to watch something that's real and raw, then just don't watch it. So in the past on my channel I have been really open about women's health. Actually my second most viewed video on this channel is about swimming and having your period, and so I've never really shied away about topics that may seem controversial, because at the end of the day every woman has a period, and so it shouldn't really be controversial. I've also in the past done videos about me coming off the pill, that was quite a while ago, and I will expand a bit on that in this video. But yeah, feel free to go and check out any of those videos after watching this one. So I want to start by explaining a little bit about what endometriosis is, and I've taken this directly from the NHS website, where it says endometriosis is a condition where tissue similar to the lining of the womb grows in other places such as the ovaries and fallopian tubes. Endometriosis can affect women of any age, including teenagers. It's a long-term condition that can have a significant impact on your life, but there are treatments that can help. And so endometriosis can actually affects 1 in 10 women, and it's as common as diabetes and asthma in women. So it's a really common illness, and it's actually the second most common gynecological illness, and yet it takes on average 8 years in the UK to be diagnosed from the first onset of symptoms, which is a joke. Realistically, endometriosis is a really common illness, and yet before this year I had never heard of it, which is crazy. So I want to give you a background into my period and things like the typical symptoms that can be experienced with endometriosis and whether or not I've felt them for a long time. And so I want to start by talking about my earlier years. So I started my period when I was about, I think I was 10. And so that is, I remember being the first person in my class to start their period. And so I started my period very young. I constantly had irregular periods, and I had long periods as well. They were 7 to 8 days. And I didn't experience period pain, really. I just struggled with the fact that they were long and irregular, and I was told that they can take a while to regulate, especially after being a child. As I've mentioned already, I swam competitively. I still swim. I actually do triathlons now, but I really struggled racing on my period, and it was actually at the point where I would feel dizzy, I would feel nauseous. I was really struggling with iron deficiency. No matter how much iron tablets I took, I just was really struggling to race and train on my period. And so to combat that, I went on the pill at around 16 to basically make sure that I wouldn't have to race on my period, because I just really struggled. I didn't have pain, I didn't have necessarily really heavy periods. A lot of the girls at swimming would have heavier periods than me, but I really struggled just with fatigue and iron deficiency and racing on my periods. So I went on the pill when I was 16. I went on the combined pill and it really messed with my mood. If you have seen my video about coming off the pill, then you will know why my reasonings were for that. But I came off the pill when I was 18 or 19. I was in the first year at uni, and it was mainly for mental health reasons, because I had read that it can actually cause detrimental effects on your mental health. And I was really struggling with depression and anxiety, and so I just decided to bite the bullet and come off the pill. So when I came off the pill, my periods, like, they took a while, but they actually did regulate, but they were still 7 days long. So I still had a long period, but it was a regular cycle, and I actually felt really good initially when I came off the pill. So gradually my periods just started to get a little bit heavier and a little bit worse. I never really noticed it really. Now that I'm aware of my diagnosis, I can see that they got heavier and that I would occasionally get cramps. And in the last 2 years, I have started to get period cramps. So realistically, up until this year, I never had any suspicion that there was anything wrong. My periods had regulated, so I just assumed that my period had been irregular due to my age. And so maybe my hormones had balanced or something like that, but I didn't really worry too much about it. So like I said, gradually my periods got heavier and heavier, and I started to actually get blood clots in my period blood. I know this is TMI, but I just want to be honest about my experience and my symptoms, and obviously if you're watching this, you want me to be honest. And in December of 2021, I actually had real big issues with iron deficiency again. I was really dizzy and I kept coming out of training and nearly passing out, and so I went to the doctor and was prescribed iron tablets. That was a whole drama because the doctor actually prescribed me 3 a day when he was meant to prescribe me 3 a week. So then I went from one extreme to the other, where I was actually getting too much iron. Not really related, but just poor experience from a doctor really. So towards the end of January, actually on my birthday on the 31st of January, I really struggled with nausea and dizziness, and I didn't really understand why. My iron results had come back normal, so I didn't really know why I felt so sick, but I actually didn't really eat much at my birthday meal. Didn't have cake, didn't have a dessert, didn't have a starter, barely touched my meal, and just felt really, really nauseous. And I don't know if that was the start of my symptoms or if the iron deficiency was start of my symptoms, but this was the beginning of a year of just constant frustrations with my health. In February, I got COVID, and so that knocked me back. Obviously, my immune system was suppressed, and then April 2022 was where everything kind of kicked off. So in April, I swelled up. I was so bloated and painfully bloated, and I experienced a 12-day period, which really took effect on my body. Then I had about a week and a half where I didn't bleed, and then I had another 12-day bleed, and my body was just ruined from it. It seemed to come out of nowhere really, but obviously now in hindsight it probably actually didn't. It was just my symptoms progressively getting worse. So due to the 12-day bleed and the extreme bloating and the pain that I was feeling in my left side around where my ovary was, I was referred for an ultrasound scan on the 20th of April, but the doctors told me that I was probably just stressed out about uni work and finishing uni and doing my dissertation, and I was just told that I was probably just stressed. I went in for an out of hours appointment. I rang NHS 111 or NHS 24 one night, and I was in absolute agony. I couldn't move. I was bent over in pain. I was curled up in a ball. My boyfriend was like constantly bringing a fresh hot water bottle. The heat wasn't helping. I was just in absolute agony. I was so swollen that NHS 24 had advised me to go into out of hours to be seen and checked and just seen if there was anything abnormal. So my symptoms, I have everything written down from a note that I had, and I had shared it with my boyfriend in case he needed it as well, in case I couldn't actually speak for myself. But I had nausea, extreme fatigue, abnormal discharge, abnormal weight gain, loss of appetite, dizziness, extreme pain that wasn't even being touched by painkillers. I was seen out of hours and they just said, monitor it, if it gets worse, go straight to A&E. So 2 days later, I was no change, but it actually felt like I was getting worse. And the pain just kept coming and there was no respite. So we went to A&E. My boyfriend took me to A&E and they suspected that I had an ovarian cyst. And so I was put straight onto a gynecology ward for an ultrasound the next morning. So I went for the ultrasound the next morning and then got the results that same day. And while I was discharged from the gynecology ward, and the gynecologist told me that there was nothing gynecologically wrong with me and that I needed to go and speak to my GP, which I have since complained about. I have written a letter of complaint to the hospital because that is neglect, in my opinion, and for them to tell me that there was nothing gynecologically wrong, despite the fact that it was, I mean, the reason why they said that was because there was nothing in my blood or on an ultrasound, but they never mentioned endometriosis to me. And for them to say that there was definitively nothing gynecologically wrong, for me to then be diagnosed with the second most common gynecological illness, frustrates me, and that should be changed. No woman should have to go through that. On their notes it said, and I'm going to quote from this, a pelvic scan was performed and reassuringly there was no endometrial pathology and no other pelvic pathology identified. This is actually incorrect. Endometriosis cannot be identified via an ultrasound or a pelvic examination. It can only be diagnosed via a laparoscopic surgery. So this is just incorrect from the gynecologist, which in itself is bad enough. And so yes, my complaint has been sent. So nothing really changed. A week later, maybe not even a week later, I went back to the doctors and they didn't even give me a doctor, they gave me a nurse. She said, oh, your urine's come back with a UTI, so that must be the reason for your pain. Now, it doesn't matter that a week before at the gynecology ward they'd actually tested my urine and it had come back negative for a UTI, and it didn't matter that I said to her, actually a UTI wouldn't affect my periods. She just said, I've trained as a doctor for that, I've trained as a nurse for this long, I know more than you, was her words to me, which again just frustrates me. I have been in my body for 22 years. I know my body better than you do. I then spoke to the doctors the next day to speak to someone who actually knew what they were talking about, and she was amazing. She was actually really helpful, although she said that she didn't suspect that it was endometriosis and she said that it was very unlikely. But she said that because my scan had ruled out, my bloods had ruled out, she didn't know what else to do. So she referred me for a surgical assessment in the hopes that they would be able to offer some advice. So I went for a surgical assessment. It was around about the 10th of May and they took my bloods again. The bloods came back clear. What he said to me was that it could just go on its own, but if it didn't, then I was to speak to the doctor and request a laparoscopy because he said that he suspected that it could be endometriosis. So this was the first person who actually mentioned to me that they thought it could be endometriosis. And this was a month and a half after constantly seeing doctors and constantly being fobbed off. He said that if I had another long period to go to the doctors and request a laparoscopy and to say that he had requested that I have the laparoscopy because he said that they might not give me it otherwise, which says a lot, the fact that a surgeon can even acknowledge that and say that. So on the 20th of May, I went to the doctors. I had had another early long bleed. I was bleeding for about 8 days at this point, and I had had enough of the bleeding, the constant bleeding. It was really starting to affect me, not just physically but mentally, and I was just broken. Like, it was so difficult to just bleed that much, and it took so much out of my body that I just had to go on the pill. And that's not me justifying it, because I shouldn't need to justify it, but the last thing I wanted to do was go on the pill. But I really felt like I had no choice, because I actually physically didn't know if I could bleed that much anymore. So on the 20th of May, I went to doctors, was prescribed the pill, the same pill that I was on before, and they signed me off to be referred for a laparoscopy. Now, what I didn't realise was that in the NHS, my doctor referring me for the laparoscopy isn't actually me being on the waiting list. Actually, they have to refer me to a gynaecologist, who then has to sign me off to be referred for the laparoscopy to then be on a waiting list. The waiting list to just see the gynaecologist was, I was told, 12 months at least. And so I said, nope, I can't cope with this pain. I need to be put as urgent. And I was told that I was being put down as urgent. When I rang back a week later to find out what was happening, I was told that I'd been put down as routine. And this is the constant thing that's part of my story, to be honest. I was constantly told that I was being put down as urgent, but I was actually just being put down as routine. So on the 15th of August, I was waiting 3 months to see the gynaecologist, because I constantly kept ringing them. Now, this is the thing that really frustrates me, is that my pain wasn't taken seriously the first time I spoke to the doctors. I had to ring them every single week, constantly pester them. You shouldn't have to do that. You just shouldn't have to do that. And the NHS does an incredible job. It really does. And I don't want to just come across like I'm just slating the NHS. But from a women's health point of view, it is disgusting, and it is so bad. I personally was diagnosed in 9 months from the onset of my symptoms really getting worse, and that felt like a long time, and yet the average is 8 years. So there's people who are waiting 9 years who haven't been diagnosed, and that, I can't even imagine how that must feel. It felt like I was being neglected so much, just 9 months. And so if you're one of those women who've gone through this for that long, I really applaud you, and just keep going, because you deserve an answer. So yes, the gynaecologist actually signed me off for the laparoscopy on the 15th of August, and he was really reluctant to send me for the surgery. I said to him that I suspected I had endometriosis, the surgeon suspected that I had endometriosis, and that I wanted a laparoscopic surgery. And he said to me that he didn't really know if my symptoms were endometriosis. He said that he was skeptical, and that he wouldn't recommend it because it's putting stress on your body that he perceived was unnecessary. Now, I understand why he would say that, but it's also wrong, because it just frustrates me. The whole thing just frustrates me, because if I had been left waiting as long as these women, the endometriosis would have just carried on growing, and it would have been more stress on my body to actually have that much removed rather than a little bit removed. And just the whole thing just irritates me. He was a gynaecologist basically telling me that I was wrong. He suggested that I just carry on with the pill because that was the treatment method for endometriosis anyway, which, yes, that's a whole other topic entirely, because there is no cure for endometriosis. So the way that he was saying that was that it was the way to cure it, which is just wrong. And he said that it was really up to me whether or not I wanted to know if I had endometriosis. Now, the thing is with the laparoscopy is while they're in there, they remove it. So it basically gives your uterus a clean slate. Obviously, as an illness, it is chronic and it will regrow back, but it removes it. So the whole thing just annoys me that he tried to deter me from going for the laparoscopy. It could be that the waiting times are just so long that he didn't want to add another person onto those waiting times. It could be that he just was misinformed about the illness, or it could just be anything really. But I knew that I needed to go for the surgery, and I knew it, and I'd prayed about it, and I was I was just 100% sure that I needed that surgery. And so he said, okay, sure, I'll sign you off for that surgery. So I was on the waiting list, and I rang the hospital about every month asking where I was on the waiting list, if I had a date yet. And the first time I rang, I was told that I was listed as urgent. The second time I rang, I was told that I was listed as routine, and I said, that is not good enough. I'm in severe pain. It is affecting my life. Matt was having to look after me, and sometimes I would lie and curl up in a ball. It was just really affecting my quality of life. Sometimes I would have to go home from work ill because I was in so much pain. And do you know what? My workplace was so good, and they were really lenient, and they were really supportive, but not every workplace is like that. Some people would just be struck off for just taking that many sick days, and actually it frustrated me when I found out the reason why I wasn't put as urgent. So this is where my story changes from what most women's probably are. Most women, as I said before, have to wait a long time, and I just kept pushing and pushing. Not to say that other women don't, but I think I just had the right people at the right time. And once I found out that I was on the routine list, and that they said that I could be waiting until 2024 to actually get the surgery, which was 2.5 years from the onset of symptoms, I was not having it. I was absolutely not having it. I said to them, nope. And I spoke to my doctor. I said, look, listen, this is affecting me mentally, because I was crying, because I was in pain. I felt like I was a bit of a burden. Like, my boyfriend was so supportive, and actually I'm really grateful for that. But it still sucked. Like, we wanted to go out and do something, or we had something planned, and then I couldn't do it because I was in pain that day, or because I wasn't feeling well, or things like that. It just sucked. Like, it really took a toll on my mental health. And I said that to the doctor. I was like, look, this is affecting me mentally. My partner's having to care for me. I'm having to take sick days from work. My quality of life is so low at the moment, and I don't know when I'm next going to be in pain. I need to be seen urgently. So she sent a letter to the hospital to see if they could make me urgent. And at this point, I was actually getting really desperate. I was on the phone crying to my mum and dad, saying they've just told me I could be waiting another 2.5 years, and I don't know if I can actually go through this for another 2.5 years without an answer and just without anything. And my dad actually recommended that I speak to my local MP, which I thought, what are you talking about? But he said they're there for you, they're there to support you. At the very least, they can campaign in Parliament about NHS waiting times. And I thought, do you know what, I've got nothing to lose. So I emailed what I thought was the MP, but obviously in Scotland we have a Member of Parliament in Westminster, and we have an MSP, a Member of Parliament in the Scottish Parliament in Holyrood. So I just typed in Member of Parliament Stirling and emailed the Member of Parliament in Stirling, and he was a guy, and he was so rude to me. I'd basically got this automated email saying, take it up with the person in Holyrood, this is a Holyrood issue, not a Westminster issue. And he was just really rude and just inconsiderate. He didn't even give me the name of who the Member of Parliament in Holyrood was. He was just rude, and I'm really grateful that actually he wasn't the guy that I needed to speak to, because I don't think he would have helped me much, to be perfectly honest. So I typed into Google Member of Scottish Parliament Stirling, and it is a woman, and I thought, here we go, it's a woman, this is so much better, she might be able to understand a little bit. Then it turns out that she has endometriosis, so she was immediately like, look, I'm campaigning to try and reduce the diagnosis time anyway, I really want to help you in whatever way I can. So she actually wrote a letter and had a meeting with the CEO of the hospital, which obviously doesn't happen for most people. But if you're watching this and you are waiting on your symptoms, write to your MP. You have nothing to lose. And actually it brings it to their attention anyway, whether they can help you by writing to the CEO of the hospital, or whether or not they just become aware of endometriosis and the neglect that women with the actual illness have. then it's a win-win, because they can again take it to Westminster or Parliament, etc, etc. So I would encourage any women with endometriosis or suspected endometriosis who are watching this to write to your MP. So on the 27th of October was when my MP basically wrote to the CEO of the hospital and spoke to them. I had confirmation from her that she had spoken to them, and then by the 3rd of November I had received the letter from the CEO directly to apologise for the negligence, but that the reason why that I had been put as routine was because the gynaecologist didn't see it as an urgent case. He had seen that my bloods and my ultrasound scan came back clear, so he didn't see it as an urgent case, regardless of the amount of pain that I was in. And she said that I had been updated to being urgent and that I would hear in due course about when my surgery would be. So I received a letter that my surgery would be the 21st of December, so that was nearly 2 months after hearing that I was being referred as urgent, which is longer than the urgent wait list, I was told anyway. I was told that the urgent wait list is 6 weeks, so that is over 6 weeks. It was probably about 8 weeks, but nevertheless it was still sooner than 2024, and I was so relieved to just get a date. Immediately that came through all these emotions. I didn't actually want to go for surgery, but I knew that I had to, and so all the emotions kind of happened all at once because it came around super fast. I actually had my pre-op appointment on the 3rd of December, I think it was, or the 5th of December or something. I say it in the vlog, and yes, I had my surgery. So I had my surgery in Forth Valley in Larbert, and I was just in for a day surgery, so I was told that I would be in the morning and then I would be discharged that same day unless there was complications or unless I felt like I needed to be kept in. My surgery was really short actually. I was only I was only being operated on for about half an hour to 45 minutes, which I was so surprised that they could do what they could do in that time. And when I came round, I explained it all in the vlog, but I came round and the loveliest of nurse was with me. And actually that whole day kind of restored my faith in the NHS, because those nurses on that ward were absolutely incredible and they were so lovely. The surgeon and the anaesthetist were so lovely. Everyone just was so kind, and they actually validated the pain that I was feeling. So I had my surgery on the NHS. I did look into going private, but I couldn't afford it. It was just going to be too expensive, and as a student it doesn't really seem viable for me. On the NHS they actually only do ablation, so I was told that when they went in, if they found anything they would remove it there and then. And they did find endometriosis, and they basically did ablation, which is where they burn it off with lasers, and they basically remove it that way. Now, since having the surgery, I've discovered that that is not the gold standard treatment. The gold standard treatment is actually excision, and it's where they remove the root of it. It's almost like if you remove a weed, if you just chop the head off of it, like ablation, they just remove the top surface. It doesn't remove the root, and it can grow back a lot quicker, and it also leaves more scar tissue. So I had ablation, and the surgeon came to see me after I'd come round, and before I went under, I said that I wanted to see the pictures and I wanted a physical copy of the pictures myself, because I had heard these stories of people who had not been diagnosed but who had took the pictures away and then took it to get a second opinion, and then they were like, well, there's endometriosis and there's endometriosis. And because I just had no faith in doctors at this point, I was like, I want a copy of the pictures and I want to see for myself. And the first thing that surgeon did was show me the pictures, and she didn't just hand me them and go, here you go. She pointed to every single bit and explained what I was looking at, and was so validating. She found endometriosis on my left side, and she said, that is exactly, I'm assuming that that's why you felt the pain on your left side. She also said that she'd found old endometriosis on my right side that had actually resulted in scar tissue, and she'd asked me if I'd ever felt pain in my right side. Now, the only time that I felt pain in my right side was about 2 years ago when I had a hip well, it was like having a trapped nerve in my hip, which could be that, it could be just that I had an injury, but that was old like scar tissue basically from endometriosis that they also removed, and they just removed it there and then. The endometriosis that they found was minimal, but obviously it's still there, and the surgeon actually said to me if I had not been seen urgently it would have just grown and grown and grown, and it would have been worse, and actually it could have stuck organs together and stuff like that. So she said that it was really, really good that I'd been seen now rather than having to wait another 2 years. So she was just so lovely and validating, and like I said, I have vlogged the whole recovery process for the first 2 weeks, and that vlog will be up next, so click the subscribe button and stay tuned for that. But yeah, I just felt so much relief to finally get an answer and to finally get a diagnosis, and to actually feel like my pain was validated and that it wasn't as severe as it could have been. Because you're feeling pain, you automatically think the worst, that it's really, really bad. But actually, I was really, really blessed that it was just such a small amount. And obviously, small amount still caused me a lot of pain, and it's not good for it to be there anyway, but it could have been a lot worse. And so, yeah, I just felt so grateful that I'd got an answer, but it wasn't the worst. Like, it wasn't awful. It wasn't like they said, actually, this is really, really bad. And so I was just so high after that operation for actually feeling like my pain had been validated and feeling like finally I had an answer. This whole year was just such a roller coaster, and it was so draining to constantly be on at medical professionals and to constantly be on the phone, to constantly be at the doctors, to be constantly in A&E, and it just felt so good to finally have an answer. And oh, I'm getting a bit emotional. This year has been brutal, and the fact that I could end the year and start a new year on a clean slate and to actually have an answer and to be able to move forward with that was just incredible. So that is my story. If you have any questions about my story, then please comment them below. I will always answer my comments. I have since joined 2 endometriosis Facebook groups, Endometriosis UK one and a worldwide one. I prefer the UK one because it's more specific to the NHS and things, but the worldwide one obviously has more people in it. I've also been reading some books, and I want to give you some book recommendations that might help you. I read How to Endo by Bridget Huswaite. This one was good, but there was some bits in it that I just didn't really like. I felt like it was kind of pushing, like I felt like it was a bit of an advert, to be honest, because it was advocating, oh, my friend does this, and my friend does massages, and my friend does acupuncture and all of this, and I just felt like it was kind of like a little bit like that, but it was also very factual, so I would recommend it, but just have that in mind. That might just be my opinions. I read The Doctor Will See You Now by Tamara Sekin. This was an incredible book, and it's written by a surgeon. He's a top class surgeon, and it's so good. Endometriosis, It's Not in Your Head, It's in Your Pelvis by Bethany Stahl. This was really good. I read this for like a personal experience kind of thing. It really goes into personal experience. Obviously there's YouTube videos, and there's some really good YouTube videos that I have watched a lot of them, but I kind of just wanted to read someone else's experiences. I'm currently reading this, which is really good. I'm actually highlighting it. It's called Take Control of Your Endometriosis by Henrietta Norton. I am a huge advocate for healthy food and the way that foods can help your body heal. When I had glandular fever, I actually recovered really quickly, and to the surprise of the doctors how quickly I recovered, and that was because I researched so much about foods and what foods could help me recover. And so this book goes into that. It's written by a nutritional therapist, but I'm really enjoying how it explained endometriosis and how much detail, but how clear it is. Like, it's even gone into what is a hormone, which I really appreciate. Like, it's really in depth, but for dummies. And the other one that I would really recommend is A Brief Theology of Periods by Rachel Jones. This book changed my life. As a Christian, I really enjoyed it, but I would recommend it to non-Christians as well, because it is actually a phenomenal book. I recommend it to all my friends who are girls. Even my guy friends, I would recommend it to them, because it's just such a good book. And so yeah, they are the book recommendations that I would give. I want to finish this video by thanking the people who are around me, thanking my work, my boss, who they've just, like, I work for 2 different places and both of them were just so supportive while I was recovering from my op, while I was waiting for it, when I was unable to work because I was in so much pain when I was constantly in the hospital. They were just so supportive, and not every workplace is like that, and I'm so grateful for that. And I have told them personally, they probably won't watch this video, but yeah, I'm so grateful for that. My boyfriend, who has been by my side through all the ups and downs and wiped away who has held my hand through everything and just been there to be there with me through the hospital appointments and taking me to the doctors and things like that. And to each and every person around me who has just been there for me this year. There's too many people to name, and I'm so blessed that I have so many people in my life who have been there for me, held my hand for me, like with me, prayed for me, popped around and brought me food, or taken me places because I couldn't go, or picked me up from the hospital, like my pastor who picked me up from the hospital, and obviously my mum and dad and my family and just everyone who supported me through all this, and I'm so grateful. And before I close out this video, I am doing a winter walk for Endometriosis UK. Endo UK are doing this initiative where they are basically doing a winter walk, and the clue's in the name, you walk in winter. In January I will be walking 10k in the last week of January. Obviously normally I would just hop on the bandwagon and do a 10k fully, but because I'm recovering from my surgery I obviously can't walk 10k. The furthest I've walked so far is 2.5, so my plan is to do it in 10k throughout the week, and I will leave my Just Giving link below for anybody who wishes to donate to Endometriosis UK. They do a phenomenal job at supporting women, supporting workplaces to help support women, giving webinars to help people learn and be educated about endometriosis. They, like me, just want to see something happen and more research behind the disease. Hopefully, if I have a daughter, if I have a granddaughter one day, hopefully they will have a cure for this illness. And so yeah, hopefully our future daughters and granddaughters will not have to struggle as much as we do with this illness. And so yeah, they're a phenomenal charity. I'm gonna go ahead and conclude this video. I'm aware it's been very long, and I hope that you have found this useful in whatever way. If you are waiting on a diagnosis, keep pushing those doctors, guys. Keep pushing, advocate for yourself, and just speak up for yourself. I hope and pray that you find a diagnosis soon, and if you have endometriosis, then please reach out with any tips. I am, as of filming this, I am 2 and a bit weeks post-surgery, so any tips and tricks would be much appreciated. Comment below, we'll have a chat in the comments, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button if you want to see more future videos about this. Obviously my next video will be my recovering from surgery vlog, and also my surgery vlog, so it's kind of one big video of my pre-op, my surgery and my post-op. And yes, that is what that video will be. So I will see you guys then, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Bye guys.